does someone need to die for my sins? What have I done so wrong that someone needs to die?
This is a great question, and the creators clearly knows Christianity, knows most responses. So I'm not responding in a sense to persuade her, but more clarify my own thoughts, what I think, and I've written on my Substack an article in response to this. But it is weird. It's a weird part of Christianity, especially if you're outside it and never come across the gospel before. Why does someone need to die? Why can't God just forgive us? And I think it boils down to a miscommunication around sin, and a focus particularly in the Western world that sin is something you're guilty of, that you've committed a moral indiscretion that cuts across God's law. You're imperfect. That leads to a punishment deserving of death. Therefore, Jesus takes that punishment and gives us life. And I think while there's an element of morality around sin, that's not the full image. And so you get this really jarring idea that Jesus' death saves me from a punishment. That how do I deserve that? I haven't killed anyone, I haven't done anything wrong, and does a baby deserve that? Are we really totally depraved? I think all that is a miscommunication. I think sin is better understood as a state we find ourselves in, and so the state we're in leads to death. Everyone dies. And so the story of Christianity is really wrestling with that idea that we take things on our own terms rather than trust what God has in store. God offers all the fruit in the garden and says, don't take that one, that's death. And we choose what looked good and take death ourselves. And that seems to be, from my understanding, a type that plays out throughout humanity, through the Old Testament into the New Testament into present day, that we continue to take what looks good on our own terms rather than trust what God has, where he points us to life. So the whole idea of the sin being a moral indiscretion may be part of it, but it's not the full idea of death as a curse, a power, a force that we are under, and that God is actively defeating through what Jesus did. So if you look up what the teaching of the harrowing of hell or harrowing of Hades, this is Jesus entering death and declaring victory over it, and then resurrecting and declaring us free from the fear of death with the hope of resurrection into new creation. That's my understanding of it. I hope that helps.